Depression is absolutely terrible, and it is very, very real. And so Brad Stolberg uses this analogy that depression can feel like being on one side of a river when everyone else is on the other side. It is a deep pain that affects your entire being. It is not sadness. It is not apathy. It is an entirely different universe. And really, not fully grasping this concept of depression is understandable. It can be complex, especially if you haven't personally experienced it or you don't know a loved one who has personally experienced it. But telling someone in this state of deep depression that it's a gift or something like that, and they just need to get back to work is unhelpful, dumb, and super detached from reality. Now, we're looking at like challenges or obstacles or setbacks in our life. We can definitely view those as a gift, as an opportunity to grow and to learn and become the best version of ourselves in greatest service to the world. Those challenges, those obstacles, those things are definitely gifts. And we definitely need to get back to work to learn, to reflect, and to grow from that. But depression is a totally different beast and something that needs the correct response and language and tools to combat. And so telling someone in this state of deep depression to put down the meds or that depression always comes after bad people is straight up dangerous and life threatening. And so when you are depressed, you are already filled with self judgment and self hatred. And so the last thing you need is more because we know that depression affects all kinds of people. It does not discriminate. Mental health and mental health conditions do not discriminate. Everyone has mental health and everyone thinks, feels, and acts, and everyone can be affected by depression. It has nothing to do with one's character. If anything, some of the kindest, most wise, most humane, and most caring people are predisposed to depression precisely because of those qualities that they possess. And so it leads me to think about this idea, the danger of the toughen up lie. Now, toughen up or pull yourself up by your bootstraps may work in certain situations. I do definitely agree. There's some things in life that we do need just like to get through, to toughen up, to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. Those are kind of in relation to those challenges, those obstacles, those setbacks that I talked about, that we fall 7, rise 8. We see those setbacks and those obstacles as opportunities for growth. So we can toughen up. We can pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. That's an awesome idea for those certain things in our life. But when talking specifically about depression or serious mental health conditions, the toughen up thing is very dangerous. And it's really not helpful in these circumstances because we know based on the stats that men die by suicide at 4 times the rate of women. And so the message of if you can't toughen up, there's something wrong with you is a dangerous message to send to anyone, but perhaps especially dangerous to men craving direction. Now, men sometimes do need that message. Hey, dude, you got to pull yourselves up. You got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You got to get going. You got to get moving. You got to toughen up a little bit based on some of these obstacles or challenges that they might be facing in their life. But again, this is totally different. This is a serious bout of depression. And that message is dangerous, again, especially to men who might be craving direction, especially in the modern world. And so men, again, die by suicide at 4 times the rate of women. And the suicide rate of veterans is even higher. And so one of the driving forces behind that, as we might know, is that men sometimes don't seek help for their depression. Or if they do seek help, it's not the correct help for their specific needs. And so instead, they might shove it down or do exactly what sort of these dummy, manosphere grifters advise, right? Just get back to work, right? That doesn't work for depression specifically. There needs to be some different things that go into there that make this whole, that make the tools that you apply to combating your depression. And so all the repression and faking it turns into pain, which leads to, cracks in the surface, which eventually leads to a total breakdown. And so when you are experiencing depression, the worst thing to do is try and white knuckle it alone. Please understand, depression is different than sadness, as I stated before. Depression is different than grief. And most importantly, depression is not the same as your life not being where you want it to be. If, again, to be very frank, if your life just sucks, That is not depression. That's your life being shitty. And there are certain things you can do to build yourself up, to take personal responsibility, to cultivate meaning, to have action. And so we have to understand the differences between these things are very, very important. But many tools for helping you through all these things definitely overlap. Helping your sadness or your grief or your depression or your life not being where you want it to be. There are certain tools and practices and protocols that we can apply that may help all of these in different situations, but they're not the same thing. And so when we're generally talking about mental health, so when we're generally talking about mental health, we have to think about the fundamentals. That's where we want to start. We want to start with the foundational layer. Then when sadness comes or grief comes or depression comes, we've already built this foundational layer and we can build and add things from there, like potentially therapy or medication, but we already have the foundational layer that's super important. And that foundational layer is four things. That's eating well, moving well, sleeping well, and thinking well. We have to get brilliant at those basics so that we can have the strongest foundation possible, so we can have the strongest emotional, mental, and physical foundation possible. So if we do experience sadness or grief or depression, we have that to lean on as a routine and a ritual, and then we build more structures and tools and actions from there. And that's also a really great place to start if your life isn't where you want it to be, which can be disheartening and sad and disappointing, but that's not the same thing as experiencing depression. And so think about those four fundamentals as you think about the totality of your mental health and then move from that space. Patreon is the home of our exclusive community where we do bonus episodes, live streams, Q&As, and merch discounts, and so much more. Patreon is the number one way to support this podcast and to support my mental health nonprofit called You Are Loved.